Welcome back to College Football Addiction, the ACC Championship this week. We tried to break down every single week different teams' paths to getting there, and Clemson finds themselves in the ACC Championship due to Miami dropping their final game of the season against Syracuse. We'll talk about that, as well as a little bit of, you just mentioned it, bipolar, schizophrenic feelings right now for Clemson. All of that presented by BetUS. We'll talk about them a little bit later. But Brian, man, how was your Thanksgiving? How was your weekend?
Thanksgiving was wonderful. Got to spend it with a lot of family and friends. The weekend was really weird, losing to South Carolina, seeing Syracuse go down 21-0, and then you're in the ACC Championship. So I don't know how to feel. I can't feel my hands. I don't know what's going on. But, yeah, I'm here, and I'm watching my team go to the ACC Championship this weekend in Charlotte.
Yeah, it's the ultimate chance for redemption, right? Like you could very quickly turn around some bad feelings. Now, I want to ask you about the South Carolina game. Watched it pretty closely. I was in Tallahassee, but I was hanging out with a buddy just at his house watching the noon games. And so I actually watched this one pretty closely. A game that it felt like Clemson was kind of in control of until really late. South Carolina kind of playing the catch-up game. I don't know. I thought there was a fumble call that kind of probably, I don't know, just didn't jive well with me where Clemson was driving. Maybe they kind of put it away there. Maybe they don't. But a game that, I think South Carolina and Clemson, two very similar teams, and they played to, the last minute as well. Like South Carolina takes a late lead and Clemson has a chance there at the end. You never want to concede, but what were your thoughts coming out of that game, notwithstanding what was happening up in Syracuse, New York, but what were your thoughts just coming out of that game, losing a tough rivalry game, but a game that came down to the last second and it, could have truly gone either way?
Wanting your team to win and then blowing it there at the very end. They couldn't tackle Lenoris Sellers. In fact, I think he just broke another tackle. He's 6'3", over 240 pounds. South Carolina had 432 total yards. Lenoris Sellers, between running the ball and throwing it, he had 330 of that. So he had 166 on the ground and 164 in the air. And I knew we were going to have a problem when in the same play, he broke a tackle with our 6'2", 315-pound Peter Woods, who no one gets away from him. And then T.J. Parker, I believe he was called the quarterback killer in high school, he broke a tackle by both of those guys in the same play, and I went, this is crazy. And the kid played a really, really good game. And, I told you last week that I was leaning towards South Carolina winning the ball game. And in the preview, I unfortunately said, hey, look, I'm going with reality. I believe they're going to win this game, and they did. So I wasn't surprised, but, of course you hate losing to the Chickens, but they have to win another 29 years before they can tie up the series, so we can take that back with us and have some fun there. But there was some missed moments for Clemson. There was a couple of questionable calls with the officiating. There was a pass that was thrown to the sideline. Looked like the guy totally was inbounds. They called it incomplete. And so it was just crazy. It was a whacked out game, but here we are going to the ACC Championship.
Yeah, when I saw, in watching the noon, well, I guess the Miami game came out at 3:30, but we watched the first few minutes of that, and it was 21-0 in the blink of an eye, and we kind of ignored that game for a little while, just found other things to watch. In fact, we by that point we had moved on to a bar and said hey, can you turn this off and put something else on? And
don't waste my time.
Yeah, it was terrible. It was nobody wants to. We're in a Florida State bar, right? Nobody wants to watch Miami blow a team out, and so they did. They turned it off. And by the time we'd gotten out of the tailgates, that's when it was oh wait, this is 21-21 now. And so Clemson loses on Saturday, but if you had to, loses the battle, but maybe wins the war by getting to go now to Charlotte. And I will get right back to chatting with Brian, but first, let me tell you about our friends over at BetUS. They've been supporting us all season. Make sure that you are using code YouTube150 when you sign up and play today. You get 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit. You get 125% on your next two. All of that up to $2,000. Make sure that you're betting with BetUS using our code YouTube150. You got kind of a one-game season at this point to make the playoff. And I know you have thoughts on making the playoff, and we've talked about those before. But the ultimate chance at redemption, a game that they have every chance to go out and win, an SMU team that has been very good this year, no doubt, but I think it's a 3-point spread, could certainly go either team's way. What was the feeling like, before we talk about the SMU game specifically, what was the feeling like saying, oh, shoot, we just lost to our biggest rivals, but we're going to Charlotte now? Like, was it like a relief, or did it minimize the pain of losing to, like you said, South Carolina, or what were the thoughts?
I felt like an old person who was starting to lose their memory, and all of a sudden I'm sitting at a birthday party and everyone's telling me, happy birthday, and I blow out the candles. I mean, it was just that bizarre and weird. Even right now, it doesn't seem real. I mean, it really doesn't. Losing to South Carolina is always a big deal for us. By the way, just for your viewers, Clemson, they had 2 home losses this year. The last time that happened, the last time they lost 2 games in one season, I believe was 2013. Y'all were that game, and South Carolina was the second game. So, I mean, we're talking a long time since Clemson has lost a game at home. I'm talking about twice at home. I said that really, really poorly, but twice at home. So it just didn't feel right. And now you're going to the ACC championship. Yeah, it just feels really, really weird. And I mean, Clemson fans are kind of split down the middle, 60-40, somewhere like that, going, well, at least we're going. And I, my approach, I'm sitting there going, yeah, that's great. But did we earn it? No, but we're in, and, hopefully we win it.
So in looking at SMU this weekend, a team that has surprised a lot of people, came into the ACC year one and had I talked with some of their folks before the season. I think they thought they liked the way that it mapped out, not having to play Clemson, not having to play Miami. They knew the Florida State game would be tough, but then that ended up not even being tough for them. And so they had a nice path to get there. And they took advantage of it and beat teams the way you're supposed to. And I think they did a really good job. But a team that I think is an interesting matchup for sure. If you look at the talent composite, it would certainly lean toward Clemson. But if you just look at the way that both teams are playing, I think you'd probably lean SMU. And it's kind of like who gets refocused. Are the lights too bright for SMU? Clemson obviously has been here several times, and their staff and a lot of their players know how to kind of deal with a Charlotte game that is kind of winner take all. And so I think that creates a really, really intriguing matchup. Can the young buck, the new kid on the block, pull it off? I mean, absolutely they can. They're a favorite for a reason. But I certainly don't think it's going to be easy for SMU. What probably intrigues me the most about this game is Jennings running the ball, and obviously Clemson didn't do a great job against Sellers this weekend. And could Jennings have some of that same success? Because he's a good passer too. Like, I don't want to make it just that he's a runner, but could he have some of that same success that gave Clemson a little bit of trouble this last weekend?
Yeah, I mean, the guy versus Lenora Sellers is very different. Sellers is 6'3", over 240, so he was breaking those tackles. This guy is 6 feet tall, a little shifty, We have to respect him. I would say spy him, but I really don't see him, and I could be wrong, breaking tackles when it comes to like Peter Woods and those guys who were getting a hold of Sellers, and his big old telephone legs was just going right through them. But we do have to respect what they do. I think one really important aspect of this game on the Clemson side, as you mentioned it, Clemson's been there and done that. Charlotte's not too far from Clemson, about 2.5 hours, roughly 2 hours or so, according to how fast you drive. So Clemson's done this before. Cade Klubnik has an ACC championship. In fact, in his freshman year, he took over for DJ against the North Carolina Tar Heels with Drake May and all of those guys. He took over against them and won the ACC championship. So believe it or not, he's been to this game. And I would say that he took over in a situation that was not really the most desirable setup for anyone, especially a freshman, and he won it. So that's playing in our favor. You'll have a lot of orange and white in the stadium because Clemson travels well. And as I said, Charlotte's not too far from the Tigers. On the other hand, let's look at SMU. We share 5 common opponents, and SMU beat every one of them worse than Clemson did. And in fact, they beat Louisville when we lost to Louisville. So as I'm looking over the team, and I just previewed their team, I didn't do the whole preview for the game. I was looking at who we played versus them, and they took care of business when they played the opponents that we played. We almost lost to Pittsburgh. They didn't almost lose to Pittsburgh. In fact, they were Pittsburgh's first loss, and they handed that one to them pretty commandingly. They took care of y'all more than we took care of the Seminoles. So they're taking care of business, as the old song says. But the thing that I look at with SMU is their only loss was to BYU. What can Clemson pull from that loss? I know it was earlier in the season, but you can look at them and ask this question: what did the Cougars do that possibly we could do? The next thing to look at, and I think is a big point of emphasis in this game, TJ, is that SMU has the number 85 overall ranked defensive team for passing yards allowed. So if I'm Clemson, I look at that and I say, well, hold on, they're the number 4 rated team of stopping the run. Dial up those freshman wide receivers who, by the way, were tearing up South Carolina. Let's stretch the field on them. SMU, they have a really good team when it comes to team sacks. They're ranked like number 11th. They come in with like 37 sacks on the season. So we just faced an opponent that was some version of them. You have a mobile quarterback, but they're different sizes. You have a team who can pressure and sack the quarterback, but it's a little different. The passing game is somewhere that I believe that we could truly exploit them by stretching the field. I won't even say get the ball out of your hands quickly on the quick dump outs, quick shot out into the flats. I would say try to take shots downfield and make them guard you, because their ranking as far as against the pass is really, really bad. It's number 85. So I think it's going to be a really good game, and I think this is a chance for Clemson to definitely redeem their season.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think that, I was watching it with a buddy who doesn't follow Clemson, nearly as closely as I have this year and doing this channel and chatting with you. But, it was Moore and Wesco and everybody making plays. And I was like, yeah, that kid's a freshman from 15 minutes away from me. And Wesco, here's another one that, has been really, really good this year. And obviously they've got some talent back at wide receiver. And I was pretty impressed with the way that they played. And I do think that's the weakness for SMU is the secondary. And I think that's, kind of the path. People were surprised when I said that last week about, Clemson. What's Clemson's best path? And I thought it was getting the ball to the wide receivers. And
yeah.
I didn't think they'd be able to run for 1,000,000 yards on, which obviously, Cade had a couple of nice runs that were really impressive when he kind of took what was there, and things were covered well downfield. But yeah, I think it's, again, the same thing. I think it's Clemson's wide receivers kind of going out and showing out, which I thought they played pretty well. And, Clemson, there were some things that didn't go super well at the end of the game, but I thought Clemson did a good job kind of exploiting that and taking advantage. And I don't think SMU's defense is quite as good as South Carolina's is, certainly not up front. And that's no shot at SMU. I just think that South Carolina has one of the best defensive fronts in the country. And so not many teams have a defense like that up front. And yeah, I don't know that, look, offensively, I don't know that they have a Sellers, Sanders combo back there at quarterback running back. Although I do think that their running back is one of the best in the ACC. And so again, that's no shot at him. And I think Jennings has been really good for them too. So I don't know. It's an interesting matchup. I'm very interested to see how the trenches match up. I'd probably lean Clemson there a little bit, but I don't know. Like it's a weird game. It's a fluky game at times, this sport that we love. And so I don't think that anything's certainly decided. And, you look at the way the teams are playing right now. Again, Clemson hasn't taken care of business quite the way that SMU has. Maybe Clemson's played a little stronger opponent, than SMU has for a lot of the year. But I don't know. But I will say, like you talked about Florida State and Pitt, Clemson had to go to Florida State with a quarterback change. SMU got them at home. Pitt, you guys had to go to Pitt where they got them at home. So I do think there's some nuance to some of that, although Louisville was the opposite, right? They went to
Yeah.
Louisville where you guys got him at home. So there are some caveats to some different things for sure. But it's really early in the week. I won't make you make an official prediction, but do you have a lean in this one? Do you have which way do you think this goes? Again, I won't hold you to it real hard because it is Monday,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. You know what? You know me. I'm hard on my Tigers. And everybody that watches me all the time, they're going to be shocked at this. But as of Monday, before the game, I try to look at a team logically. Logically, it seems like SMU should have this game. It does. But I have this feeling in my gut. I have this feeling in my gut that Clemson could win this game. Yeah, it's past the whole Bobby Dodd. Anybody can beat anybody on any given weekend. I really think that Clemson can win this game. I think this is a grand opportunity, and you should make fun of me for saying grand opportunity. This is a really good opportunity for Clemson to win a big game, get a conference championship, get into the college football playoff, and try to shed some of this funk that they've got on them over the past 4 seasons, including this one. You can't beat a Georgia. You can't beat a big team. You beat Notre Dame last year, but Notre Dame ended up not being, bad. They were a good football team, but they were not elite. You just lost to South Carolina, the hottest team, one of the hottest teams in college football that just happens to be your rival. By the way, South Carolina's not used to this type of success. Normally they're bad. And that's a little bit of trash talk and a little bit of truth. So, you lost that game. You lost to Louisville. Can you put this behind you? This is a really good opportunity for Clemson and their coaching staff to put all of this behind them and say, look, we win the ACC. We go to the college football playoff. Then you go there, and even if you lose, you're competitive. And it's like, hey, we're here. We're playing like we were in 16 and 18 and at least something like that. This is a really good chance for Clemson to get rid of the old, bring in the new, move forward, and just try to get back to an elite program, because the flip side of that is I think that if they lose this game, and this will be loss number 4, and you have lost all these games and you got in here on the misfortune of someone else, I'm very concerned what that could do to Clemson. But right now, I'm leaning towards my Tigers actually winning this game in a really good game.
I also think that if they were to get to the college football playoff, it's not a guarantee that that they would certainly, but they'd have a bye, right? And then who knows who they'd be playing, right? Yeah. Who knows who that? There's no dominant teams, so there's no guarantee of them just getting some. I mean, they're gonna say they'd probably, in my opinion, I think Clemson would end up with the 3 seed. I think the winner of this game gets the 3 seed. I think the Big Ten's going to get 1. I guess unless it's Penn State, then it could be Texas. But let's say it's Oregon, Texas, Georgia is going to be the 2 seed, and then Clemson 3. So you're playing the 6-11 matchup, right? You could theoretically get who knows, man? Shoot, are they going to put a SMU back in with 2 losses? Are they going to put a 3-loss Bama in, who has been susceptible at times? Does that, who is the 6th seed at that point? Is that Notre Dame? Is that Tennessee? Is that, so none of these teams that Clemson would potentially play in the play, none of them scare me as a point. Now, I don't think Clemson's just an automatic lock to beat any of those teams, but I do think that, those would be teams that Clemson would absolutely have a chance against, and really shouldn't. None of those teams spark the kind of fear into me as an outsider that says oh no, here comes a blowout. You're not playing Oregon or something, right? Like that, yeah. You're playing teams that have 3 and more losses at that point. You should be pretty competitive in it, especially with the fact that they're coming off a game and you've gotten that week to rest. So anyway, I think it could be really good for Clemson, brand perception wise, big picture wise, and things like that. So Brian, I'm excited to continue to talk about this game, continue to talk about what's next for Clemson, whether they're in the playoff or not. Obviously need to win this one to get there. And then what they'll do big picture through the offseason. Obviously so much is made about Dabo in the portal, Dabo and this, that, and the other. I'm interested to talk about that, and certainly we'll get you back on to talk about that. But I know you talk about all that stuff far more often than I do here. So where can people follow you? Where can they find your work?
Yeah. I'm on YouTube, Clemson Football Live. Check me out over there. Let me know that you saw me on TJ's channel and say hello. It's always good to be on here, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate BetUS again for their support. Brian, good luck this weekend.
I appreciate it. We need it.